At zero for 30 hours on a frozen December morning, a $1 billion collection of Russian strategic assets erupted in flames across 5 critical military installations. What began as routine maintenance operations would conclude 30 surgical minutes later with 60% of Moscow's primary theater ballistic missile capability reduced to molten scrap metal. The Russian Federation brought overwhelming brute force to what Ukraine transformed into a masterclass of precision warfare. The Kremlin faced an exceptionally long morning. Russian strategic planning centered on weaponizing winter itself. Total electrical grid destruction was designed to force Ukrainian capitulation before the season's first snowfall. The weapon system of choice was the Iskander-M theater ballistic missile system. This 40-ton mobile launcher represented a Mach 7 hypersonic delivery platform engineered to obliterate critical infrastructure within seconds of launch authorization. However, even sophisticated weapon systems require periodic maintenance. To prepare for a massive nation-wide bombardment surge, Russian strategic commanders committed a catastrophic miscalculation. Dozens of mobile launcher systems were concentrated into centralized repair facilities for accelerated maintenance and missile reload procedures. This consolidation created the operational vulnerability Ukraine had been systematically searching for. United States intelligence assessed Ukrainian stealth reconnaissance platforms spent 90-6 consecutive hours monitoring this $1 billion concentration of strategic firepower expand. Kyiv narrowed the targeting matrix to 5 critical logistics hubs: Bryansk, Kursk, Rostov-on-Don, Krasnodar, and the Crimean Peninsula. Each installation existed within a 60 to 250-mile engagement envelope where Ukrainian unmanned aerial systems could achieve complete saturation coverage. The primary obstacle remained formidable Russia's integrated air defense network, including S-400 Triumf long-range surface air missile systems and Pantsir-S1 combined gun-missile platforms. A single tactical miscalculation would transform Ukraine's entire unmanned aerial fleet into exceptionally expensive debris. The operational challenge was clear: how does a regional military power transform a 30-minute window of tactical vulnerability into a nation-wide strike that eliminates half of an adversary's strategic missile capability? The answer involved several hundred pieces of carbon fiber deception technology and an exceptionally challenging morning for Russian air defense crews. At 0340-7 hours near Bryansk, Pantsir-S1 radar operators observed a nightmare scenario: 60 incoming signatures flying at extremely low altitude and high velocity. This was the Corvo precision payload delivery system, Ukraine's cardboard phantom. These were not recreational aircraft. Each unit represented a precision-engineered decoy equipped with miniature signal emitters programmed to deceive Russian radar systems into identifying them as $500,000 Neptune cruise missiles. Russian operators protecting the $1 billion Iskander maintenance facilities accepted the deception completely. Standard operating procedures identified the signature pattern as a saturation attack. Fingers activated launch sequences. The night sky filled with 57 E-6 interceptor missiles launching at high velocity. Each Russian interceptor carried an approximate cost of $150,000. The targets were $500 assemblies of wax-coated cardboard. The tactical mathematics represented absolute disaster. The Pantsir's dual 30-mm automatic cannons commenced firing at 4,000 rounds per minute. Moscow was incinerating millions in advanced munitions to eliminate paper targets. While Russian crews celebrated confirmed kills, the actual strike platforms had already penetrated the defensive perimeter at tree-line altitude of merely 130 feet. 20 Lelika-100 stealth drones represented the silent hunter-killer force. Their carbon fiber airframe construction generated a radar cross-section smaller than a common crow. While Pantsir radar systems remained blinded by smoke and electromagnetic interference, the Lelika platforms slipped through defensive gaps like electronic ghosts. The Lelika-100 processes tactical data in real-time. Onboard artificial intelligence systems scan for highly specific thermal signatures. The massive cooling unit assemblies of Iskander-M mobile launchers concealed inside Hangar 4. The lead drone achieved target lock and entered terminal dive profile at 100 miles per hour. Each Lelika carried a specialized shaped-charged munition. Upon impact, the warhead created a focused jet of molten copper traveling at 30-5,000 feet per second, velocity sufficient to penetrate the hangar's reinforced steel roof like a superheated needle through silk. Inside that hangar, 40-4- launcher vehicles sat adjacent to racks containing 1,060-pound warheads and highly volatile solid rocket fuel reserves. This configuration is classified as sympathetic detonation conditions. The initial blast ignited fuel reserves. Burning fuel ignited the warheads. Within a heartbeat, the hangar transformed into a pressurized furnace exceeding 3,000 degrees Celsius. 3 Iskander-M launchers, Moscow's primary nuclear-capable strategic strike platforms, were literally liquefied into pools of scorched aluminum. 5 massive transloader vehicles were shredded by supersonic shrapnel. These units would not fire another missile for at least 6 months. Ukraine had just exchanged a few $1,000s in cardboard and carbon fiber for hundreds of millions in Russian strategic assets. As smoke columns rose over Bryansk, Russian command personnel continued congratulating themselves for defeating the swarm attack, completely unaware their primary strike force had just been decapitated. Just 120 seconds later, Kursk was about to discover the nightmare-possessed contagious properties. At 0340-9 hours near Kursk, Russia activated electronic warfare systems at maximum power, creating a 50-mile global positioning system dead zone. Russian commanders believed they had constructed an impenetrable electronic barrier. Ukrainian tactical planners interpreted it as an invitation. 20-5 plastic decoy drones baited S-400 Triumf batteries into wasting $1 million on interceptor missiles targeting $500 targets. While the sky burned with expensive Russian miscalculations, 20-5 Bayraktar TB2 unmanned combat aerial vehicles infiltrated through vulnerable sectors. These drones did not require satellite navigation. They followed smart beacon technology cigarette-sized devices deployed earlier by silent glider platforms that projected a localized optical navigation thread immune to jamming. Inside the depot facility, 7 Iskander launchers represented sitting targets during reload operations. A Bayraktar TB2 operator achieved precision targeting of a transloader's hydraulic arm during mid-hoist operations. The hydraulic fluid automatized, the rocket fuel detonated at 4,000 degrees Celsius, and the entire staging area transformed into a pressurized furnace. 3 Iskander launchers and 4 transloader vehicles vaporized. However, the winning streak encountered brutal reality. Russia adapted defensive tactics, switching Pantsir-S1 systems to optical tracking protocols, manual target acquisition via high-resolution infrared sensors. They ignored decoy drones and maintained fire discipline. When 6 actual Bayraktar TB2 platforms emerged, they found a curtain of steel from 30-mm automatic cannons pumping 80 rounds per second. 4 Bayraktar platforms were shredded instantly. A 5th was knocked offline. Only 1 limped through, causing minor damage before being neutralized. Belgorod's mathematics 16 drones lost for 1 damaged vehicle. Unfortunately, Russian relief was premature. While Belgorod celebrated cracking the tactical code, a massive swarm of 70-5 drones was already screaming toward Rostov-on-Don for total saturation attack. Russian commanders in Rostov-on-Don believed they were prepared. They had studied after-minus action reports and increased S-300 missile systems and Pantsir radar sensitivity to maximum detection levels. What they were not prepared for was a digital and physical tidal wave. Ukraine sent a saturation swarm designed to overwhelm every defensive protocol simultaneously. 70-5 drones screamed toward the most critical logistics hub supporting the entire WAS front. 40-5 were Corvo cardboard decoys maneuvering in coordinated chaotic patterns designed to accomplish one objective: crash the Russian command and control brain. The mathematics for Russian operators was straightforward. A standard Pantsir-S1 radar system can track approximately 20-4 targets simultaneously but can only engage for targets at any given moment. Ukraine obliterated that limitation completely. At 0350-5 hours, Russian radar screens displayed a digital blizzard. This represented a military-grade distributed denial-of-service attack, 70-5 drones crashing the planet's most sophisticated air defense network. While S-400 batteries wasted $1 million on cardboard decoys, 30 actual Bayraktar TB2 drones weaved through the logistics spark like robotic wolves. The target was Hangar 7, housing 9 Iskander-M mobile launchers. As Russian crews scrambled, 5 Bayraktar platforms slammed into a nearby fuel depot. The resulting shockwave literally ripped the hangar doors off their hinges. 20-5 Bayraktar drones dove into the exposed hangar, triggering a 40-minute chain reaction of secondary explosions. The tactical mathematics for Rostov-on-Don Iskander launchers vaporized, 6 transloaders shredded. Ukraine amputated the logistics artery feeding the Donbass frontline operations. At 2 hours near Krasnodar, Russian command existed in absolute operational hysteria. They had watched missile hubs from the northern border to Rostov-on-Don ignite in flames. To stop the Ukrainian unmanned aerial assault, they unleashed their most powerful asset, the KR-A for electronic warfare system. As the Ukrainian swarm approached, Russian operators activated panic protocols, cranking the KR-A for to 110% power output. They believed they had constructed an impenetrable electronic fortress. They had actually handed Ukraine the keys. In high-stakes electronic warfare, there exists a phenomenon called self-blinding. When you pump out excessive radio frequency energy, it resembles attempting to find a candle in a room filled with strobe lights. Russian S-400 Triumf and Pantsir-S1 radar systems were suddenly suffocated by their own jamming wave. They could not detect drones because they were listening to their own screaming electronic noise, while Russian operators frantically tried filtering through white noise. 30 Luty-100 stealth drones glided through the electronic fog. Constructed almost entirely of carbon fiber and composite materials, each possessed a radar cross-section smaller than a handful of marbles. These drones were programmed to exploit the jamming interference using passive homing navigation. They used the KR-A signal as a lighthouse, guiding them directly to the base center. The target was a high-value staging area where Iskander-M mobile launchers were being prepared to rain destruction on southern Ukraine. Because of the electronic warfare blackout, Russian crews could not communicate with headquarters. When 30 Luty-100 platforms hit, they executed a coordinated surgical strike using artificial intelligence, assisted terrain matching requiring no global positioning system satellites. The drones locked onto the massive cooling fins of 40-Don launchers. The Luty-shaped charge warhead punches through the engine block, followed by secondary incendiary blast igniting hydraulic reservoirs. Within seconds, 3 Iskander-M launchers transformed into pillars of white-hot magnesium and aluminum fire. 5 massive transloaders were shredded as nearby missile caches cooked off, sending supersonic shrapnel through everything in a 200-yard radius. As smoke rose over Krasnodar, only one target remained: Crimea. For the grand finale, Ukraine was bringing a legendary Western fighter aircraft and an exceptionally bold plan. For 2 years, the Kremlin proclaimed that Crimea is an unsinkable aircraft carrier protected by a forest of S-400 Triumf and Pantsir-S1 batteries. That was exactly what Ukraine wanted them to believe. While Russian command observed smoke rising from Krasnodar, a single high-Midas technology goes scream toward the peninsula at 1,500 miles per hour. Enter the F-16 Fighting Falcon. Instead of flying straight into the kill zone, the pilot stayed low, masking the jet's signature against jagged Crimean cliffs. He was there to open the door. The F-16 Fighting Falcon unleashed its ALQ-131 jamming pods, flooding every Russian radar frequency with a digital scream. Simultaneously, he released a pair of AGM-88 high-speed anti-radiation missiles. These weapons detect electronic emissions of Russian radar systems and dive down their throat at Mach 2. Russian -SEM crews panic. They had two choices: stay online and get destroyed, or shut down and go blind. They chose survival and hit the off switch. That was when the trap snapped shut. With primary eyes of Russian defense temporarily blinded, Ukraine flooded the zone with 10 Corvo decoys and 10 Bayraktar TB2 drones. Russian operators, desperate to protect 6 Iskander-M launchers being prepared to level Odessa, started firing short-range cannons like madmen. Tracers filled the sky, shredding decoys while Bayraktar TB2 drones danced through gaps, forcing Russians to focus on swarming threats in front of their faces. They were so busy swatting drones, they never saw the real killers coming from the sea. 6 Neptune long-range cruise missiles. These homegrown Ukrainian platforms were skimming just 10 feet above Black Sea waves, hiding in radar clutter of ocean spray. By the time Russian AN-196 operators realized drones were distraction, Neptune missiles were already making their final pop-up maneuver. The target was Hangar 12, the heart of the Crimean missile force. The first Neptune missiles punched through front doors at 600 miles per hour. The next 4 hit the roof structure. Inside that hangar, 6 Iskander-M launchers set fully loaded with 1,060-pound warheads. When 330 pounds of Neptune high explosives met 6,000 pounds of Russian rocket fuel, the result was a geological event. A white-hot fireball nearly a quarter-mile wide erupted into the Crimean sky. The secondary cook-off was so violent it physically shattered reinforced concrete of nearby bunkers. 6 Iskander-M launches were vaporized instantly. 5 massive transloaders, the backbone of the brigade, were turned into twisted blackened skeletons. This was the biggest fireworks display of the entire 30-minute campaign. The tactical mathematics for Crimea was final checkmate. 1 F-16 Fighting Falcon flight and 6 missiles erased the primary threat to Black Sea ports. Moscow brought a brute force sledgehammer to a high-speed digital chess match. In exactly 30 minutes, Ukraine removed every one of their pieces from the board. The leverage strike was complete. Russian President Vladimir Putin wanted a dark winter for Ukraine. Instead, he received a very bright morning on his own soil. 60% of his primary strike force gone. Billions of dollars in hardware reduced to scrap metal. And all it required was cardboard, unmanned aerial vehicles, and substantial Ukrainian determination. The operation demonstrated critical principles of modern warfare. First, technological superiority does not guarantee tactical success. Russia possessed more advanced systems, larger numbers, and deeper resources. Ukraine possessed superior tactical innovation, operational flexibility, and strategic creativity. Second, integrated air defense systems possess inherent vulnerabilities. Saturation attacks, electronic warfare exploitation, and multi-domain coordination can overwhelm even the most sophisticated defensive networks. Third, centralized logistics create concentrated vulnerabilities. Russian commanders consolidated their most valuable strategic assets into predictable locations, transforming a maintenance efficiency decision into catastrophic strategic liability. The strategic implications extend far beyond immediate tactical victory. Ukraine demonstrated that a regional military power can conduct precision strategic strikes against a major military power's critical infrastructure. They proved that low-cost unmanned systems can achieve mission outcomes previously requiring manned aircraft and cruise missiles. Most importantly, they shattered the myth of invincibility surrounding Russian strategic forces. For Russian military planners, the morning represented a wake-up call. Their doctrine assumed that overwhelming firepower and layered defenses would guarantee security. Ukraine proved that assumption catastrophically wrong. For Western military observers, the operation provided real-world demonstration of drone swarm tactics, electronic warfare integration, and multi-domain coordination. The lessons learned will influence military planning for decades. The human cost remains classified, but material losses are undeniable. Billions in advanced military hardware eliminated in 30 minutes. Strategic capabilities that will take months or years to reconstitute. Most critically, the psychological impact of watching supposedly invincible systems burn cannot be quantified but should not be underestimated. As dawn broke over the burning installations, one truth became clear: the nature of modern warfare has fundamentally changed. The era of invincible weapon systems and impenetrable defenses has ended. In its place, a new paradigm has emerged where tactical innovation, operational creativity, and strategic boldness matter more than raw firepower. Ukraine did not just win a tactical victory. They rewrote the rulebook for 21st century warfare, and they accomplished it in exactly 30 minutes.